My name is Jon Osiris. I'm a tattooer in the Seattle area for about the last 18 years or so, and started back before the internet. So it's been a little while. But yeah, for me, tattooing is a magical act and powerful. Changed my life, changed a lot of my clients' lives, and something that has been pretty profound. So I'll get back to that, illustrate that a little bit down the road here. But for me, growing up in a pretty religious household, ended up being a lot of control, things that were kind of difficult for me emotionally, stuff like that. But ended up translating into the tattooing experience later, getting a lot of relief, catharsis from from that kind of stuff. But religious household, not really into the control aspects of it. And for me, I got exposed to tattoos through like National Geographic magazine, like seeing a lot of the tribal stuff, markings, and it's kind of mind blowing. I was like, what are these folks doing that we're not doing over here? Really different. So that was inspiring and interesting. And I saw some military people in my family and that were tattooed. So I saw some tattoos like on people in front of me. Probably about 11 years old, I had a experience that was beyond. It's hard to describe as metaphysical or mystical, maybe, in that range of experience, and couldn't really articulate it at that age. But it changed things for me, and I started to see like where, some of the conditions of my family unit, my upbringing were a certain way, and I started to be able to see something a little bit outside of that. And for me, a big marker was like my first tattoo. It was getting my first tattoo, like to take control, like take ownership of my own body and do what I wanted to do without question. Ended up, it was in Everett way, like in 1993 or something like that, 94. And I was a little underage, so I snuck in, didn't get carded. This dude, biker shop, Everett Tattoo Emporium was a kind of like biker shop then, and Spike, I think the dude's name was, had a bike taken apart, leaking oil on the floor. Like, his girlfriend was the one that tattooed me. And I got my first tattoo. It was like the dude spot on the side of the arm. And it was cool. I was not prepared. They didn't help me at all. It was like really intimidating at that point to walk into a shop and like you're a kid, like, oh, this is different. And I'm like holding my breath, and I didn't realize it, started to get lightheaded, almost passed out during that whole little tattoo. It was like maybe an hour, and kind of caught myself before I passed out, had a sip of water, reset, remembered to breathe. But, mostly no conversation, just like they put the damn thing on. And that was a badge of honor for me, for sure. Like I hid it from my family for like 6 months, and till it was all healed, and I knew they couldn't like scratch it off me. And at school though, I like rolled my fucking sleeve up and let that flag fly. I was like one of the first people at my school to be tattooed that I know of, and that was that was cool. Just people's reactions were like, interesting. So I kept on. I was in the punk and hardcore scene growing up too, like doing music and playing some shows, going to a lot of shows. The counterculture aspect was super strong. I was skateboarding. I was doing like a lot of, ne'er-do-well type stuff when I was younger, graffiti, and but I was always drawing. I grew up going to church, having to go to church a lot, so I was always doodling on something in the back of the building. And my dad was a minister, so that's how, like I was always in church. And I remember starting to see more tattoos on people at shows, and I met this gal that she had come from Vancouver down for a show, and I was talking to her, and she had all these tattoos, and she turned out she was a tattooer, and so we made a plan for me to get a tattoo from her while she was in town. And I remember posting up in somebody's apartment like for hours, like while she tattooed my arm for like 6 fucking hours, and it was fun. It was like really, really grassroots, or really punk rock, I'd say, just fucking punk, you know, getting tattooed in a house. So those are my early experiences. And then moving on to having more professional setting, like tattoos were, probably in my later teens until I was like, 18, 19 maybe. And it was a way, I didn't see it that way at the time, but I definitely noticed like I felt better about myself. It was like a self-confidence thing too, and I ended up being really enjoying the experience a lot. And I would get like maybe like 2 tattoos in a sitting. Just, I'd come in with my sketches or whatever and hand them to this guy, and it was in shop in Kirkland for a while, and got like a handful of tattoos from that guy. A couple are from some other random people, kind of around that same time. So definitely life-changing for me, and it's where I started to see the potential for like almost a therapeutic change in my world. And it's a immediate change. It calls us to be present. It's like this, it forces us to be in the present moment, in your body, in the moment. And it's, like I said, it's a magical act. It's powerful. And some people, you got nerves maybe when you start out. You get a little butterflies, or you get nervous or whatever, but it definitely, when as you go through the experience, it can transform you in a lot of different ways. So I've seen that with myself. I've seen it with clients, and it's always been just continually pulls me back into the present moment and relating to people in the now, and that's been very powerful. So let's see, moving on to my teen years. End of my teens was when I first encountered, I left Seattle as soon as I was 18. I was like out of the house. Needed to be on my own, without controls, without a lot of, but I did take notes on all the ideas that my parents were like afraid of, So it's like, why are they afraid of this stuff? Why don't they want me to look at this stuff? Tattooing was not something they were thrilled about, obviously. My dad was more chill about it than my mom. My mom thought it was about her and ruining the thing that she made. My dad thought, it's his body, he's gonna do what he's gonna do, so he was more loose. But I got distance from them. I moved across the country. I met some people at a show who invited me out. They were doing like a fanzine for hardcore music and different stuff like that. And I had scrounged up some money to buy like a little starter kit from one of the local shops around. It was another biker outfit. And they didn't want to tell me shit. Like, nobody was welcoming. It was like, you can buy this stuff and then get the fuck out of here, is the attitude. And so for me, it was, I wasn't going to press into that. I was, definitely too young to be asking questions. I tried, but they shut me down pretty quick. So I was out of there and just practicing on myself and a few friends who were brave enough to like let me break out on them. And I've seen some of them later, and I've fixed a couple things over the years. And also some of the stuff that I saw that was probably the worst didn't even hold up. It just disappeared. It's because it was just barely scratched in there. So I was scratching out of my bedroom when I was like 18 with some friends. But I moved across the country, and I took that kit with me, and tried to go a little further with it, realized, I don't really have the nuts and bolts. I can draw, I can put a stencil on, I can go over the stencil, but I didn't know shit about machines. I didn't know stuff about equipment and what's good, what's bad. Also, like, I knew why you were wearing gloves, but I also, didn't have training on any of it. So, just a little ignorant, but hungry. Time going forward, ended up into a martial arts community there, which also pulled me into like the Asian philosophies and interest in Taoism and Buddhism and some of these other like Eastern philosophies and ideas, was pretty instrumental in making some connections when I came back here, interestingly enough. So I was training with a martial arts group out there, and when I left to come back to Washington, I asked one of my teachers, I said, hey, I'm moving back to Seattle, is there anything that you want from here that I could send you? And he was like, I would like a grave rubbing of Bruce Lee's gravestone and Brandon's if you can. And so I said, yeah, I can make that happen. So I went to the art store to grab some supplies, some paper and some charcoal and whatnot. And I run into this dude who's got a really beautiful sleeve, and it's a Ganesh sleeve who ended up being the guy that tattooed me and my mentor. And I was looking for somebody because I'd seen this book, The Japanese Tattoo by Sandy Feldman. It just blew me away. So I was like, I want to figure out what this is about. I want to do this. I told a couple of friends of mine that were kind of close, and they were just like, dude, that's crazy. Don't do it. Like that's too crazy. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm going to do it. Like, I just got to find the right person. So ended up going to the art supply store. I bump into this dude, got this nice sleeve, and I'm like, I'm looking for somebody that does work like that. And he was like, oh, it's my friend, Colin Delgado. So I'm like, I'm going to check him out. And he was working just downstairs from here pretty much, like at Vivine Lazonga's place. Went down to talk to him a couple of times because it's such a big project. You need to have conversation about this. Get to know a person a little bit before you jump into this like relationship. I mean, we've been pretty close now for like 30 years almost. And so that just goes to show, like, some have that potential, some relationships do, and some don't. But this was a really unique experience and entry into this for me because it came through like my martial connections and some of that like training background and all this, and then I like morphed into like this body of work. So I told him I want a bodysuit. He's like, wow, that's a lot of work. We should probably talk about this a few times. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. I was 19 years old, and I just knew that that's what I wanted. And I had a bunch of stuff on me already that he graciously covered up over the years. So ends up like maybe like a few years into it, we got through started on my chest, did my arms, starting to move to the back. And he was then working privately with Tina Bafaro, who's another friend of mine. She's tattooed my throat and my palms and feet and stuff. And another good friend who I just visited actually. And she's been around a long time. She worked with Vivine also, and then she and Colin split off, had a shop together, private, and that's kind of when I started. I think he started to groom me. I'm not sure if that was his intent or not, but like, I was a goldsmith and a jeweler from 1999 on. So he started saying, hey, if you want more time in the chair, like maybe you can make some needles for me. So I started doing that. So I'm making like batches of needles, cleaning them, getting them sterilized, getting them ready for him to use. He showed me how to do that, and I did that for like the next 10 years, probably close to 10 years, like a long time. made, and then I was making my needles and his needles. So there's this aspect of like making your own tools to tattooing that's really fucking cool. It's part of the craft. And a lot of people coming up now certainly don't know that aspect. Because stuff's so easy. You need Amazon shit. You can buy Chinesium. Like, you know, it works. Like, the stuff works. But there's getting into like refinement of the craft. Learning your tools, knowing how to make things yourself is a huge leg up. I mean, it's going to take people way further in some areas. So anyway, before I rail on that too hard, I'm bringing back to the narrative and to say that eventually he kind of put it in front of me and said, "Hey, are you still drawing? Do you want to, you know, do you still want to do this?" And I was like, "Are you serious?" You know, and he's like, "Yeah." So I asked for a month to get my affairs in order, and then I was all in. So I was doing a lot of different jobs here and there, but like I was a bouncer, security guy at bars, clubs, and whatnot. And I did some, you know, jewelry work, continuing on, and all while I was training to do this thing, to apply this trade, have this craft. And all skills are perishable. So it's one of those things like the more time you get, the more time you spend, the less perishable it is, but it's still, you spend time away from something and you feel a little rusty, you know. It's like sometimes after a 2-week vacation, I don't want to jump into line work right away, you know, like a brand new piece, maybe do some shading first, and then I'll feel comfortable enough. But, and I've had other colleagues and friends tell me the same thing. Like when I asked Freddie Corbin to do some work for me, he was like, it's like, "Bro, it's like I haven't tattooed for like a week or two. I don't want to tattoo your face yet, you know, like let's do something else." So that's definitely a feature, the skill level, you know, we can kind of get variance with it. So my time on the table kind of for me, it gave me a chance to refine my own experience and the way that I was getting through it, which eventually led me to helping my clients on the table, right? Because that's an important piece. Some people out there don't have tattoos and they're tattooing people. That's sketchy as fuck. Totally disagree with that. You know, it's tough to like walk somebody through something you haven't been through. And in some cases that's not even fair. So I would just I ask people to consider that. But my table time, I realized that breathing was huge, like changed the game for me and what I did with my mind. So instead of like, of course now everybody has a phone, but like back in those days, we didn't have no fucking phones. It wasn't a distraction point as much, or a way to distract yourself from being with whatever you're doing right now. So rather than splitting the focus off and like reading a book or even conversation, sometimes I realized that like, man, I can get through this a lot better, a lot with less struggle if I'm really tuned into my breath and just inhale, exhale, relax the body. Inhale, exhale, relax. Extend the exhalations in order to relax the body. So like sometimes like the lines start getting pulled and I'm like, just start to like work with the movement of the tattooer. And that was a huge, huge game changer for me. And it's been a game changer for my clients. Like I've helped people get through some shit they were ready to give up on. And that's huge. That's been an incredible transformation for me to witness and for them to go through. So I've done it myself, and I encourage other people to do so also. So the philosophy of it as well really came through for me throughout that period of, you know, it took I mean, we finished my suit technically in 2018, so 20 years, pretty much to the month. August, I think it was, August 2018, 2000, what would that be? 1998 to 2018. So a good 20 years of like working with the person, learning from the person, being mentored in a way that also allowed me to continue to do, to work for other people and to take clients of my own. Working in shops around the city, like handful of shops here and there with colleagues, like super fun, a lot of fucking, you know, crab assing and stuff, and like clubhouse vibe in some cases, like, you know, obviously we like, you know, like jokes and screwing around, having fun and whatnot, but then being able to like turn on a dime and be real serious about what you're doing. It's great latitude for in a lifestyle, really. I mean, a lot of people get attracted to the lifestyle before they even realize like what it takes. But it's definitely, there's good times had and connections made. So a big part of my shift happened when I was working in a walk-in shop where people just, like the desk person just like doles out work to people who have openings. And so sometimes you'd have somebody sit in your chair that you hadn't consulted with, you hadn't done like a, you know, being private for a long time myself, like we have a conversation, we have maybe a couple conversations of consultation before we start the work, so we kind of know what we're getting into, everybody's ready. But the walk-in thing, or like pre-scheduled type of walk-in, is, you know, very different in terms of like, you don't know who you're, like, it's just like a card draw, like luck of the draw. You get this person today. And so the interesting thing about that was I just had a feeling that this person was like, they were going through something and they were not necessarily totally checked into like what they were asking for, but they were asking for a tattoo. And I chatted with them about it and tried to make them feel at ease, that there wasn't any pressure to like go through with this. I encouraged them to take more time. And they agreed at the end of the, 10 minutes we spent together. And I got pressure from the shop owner because they saw somebody leaving, right? They like walking out without the work being done, the money being made or whatever. And I explained the situation. I said, hey, I encourage them to think about it. I don't know if this is the right thing for them. I'm certainly like hesitant to do it based on the conversation that we had. So I told them, take a couple of days, few days, think about it, come back. Well, your deposit's still good. So I'm like, I feel like I dodged a bullet. I can sleep at night. My integrity's intact. I feel like I'm doing right by people, right? So this person comes back in 15, 20 minutes. And they're like, I want to do it. Let's do it. And I'm like, not what I expected. I thought I'd see you in a couple of days, but okay, like if you're back and you're sure, okay, well, I'll do it. So I put this tattoo on. And I left, like not long after that, I left that shop. Couple months, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later even, I went to go get a laser session on a piece that I had. I wanted to lighten it up, an old piece that I could get blasted over. So I'm in the laser shop. Lady, I'm like, I come in, I look at the book, and I'm like, wonder if I see a tattoo I did in here, right? Wouldn't that be weird? Well, didn't see anything. So I get my session. The lady's like flipping through her camera. Oh, here's what else I did this week. That tattoo on her camera roll. Somebody wanted lasered off. I'm like, I did that tattoo. And she asked me, how does that make you feel, And I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to think about it. And so at that point, I really started to consider like, the like the tattoo that somebody asked for maybe isn't the tattoo they really need or want. You kind of take them at face value, but my own intuition, I went beyond it. I didn't listen to it, and so my own intuition and my own like position in this arrangement, this relationship, I have potentially something to say or add or adjust in that situation, and to not listen to it was like, this was a clear indication that I should have, right? So, and the pressure of the money, the pressure of the situation could all be dealt with differently. So it was a learning moment for me and a point of decision. So I decided that I wasn't going to do that ever again, and that I started asking myself the question of like, how do I want to show up to this craft? Because it's a trade and it's a craft, and it's also a passion. You get bit by the bug, and I think, you want more tattoos, but also for us, those of us who take the journey, become tattooers, whatever, there's something more. There's something like, passionate. There's a borderline obsessive about it. It's so interesting, and it's such a magical thing, creating this change for people. So I think that's really powerful, and that's what pushed me further. So, long story long, I ended up making a point to just switch shit up and travel, and I decided I was going to throw all my stuff in storage. I still had the studio to come back to work, and I was going to go for however long, just going to feel it out and work my way around. So I did a lot of driving around the United States, working in a lot of shops, different guest spots, and things just opened up. Like I'd meet somebody, vibe with some other tattooers that I was working with at this shop, and they'd be like, "Oh man, I think you'd really dig like so and so in this other town, this other shop," and go there, and like they'd make a phone call, and then I'd have a chair to sit in next week. So you could really just like cruise around and continue to feed yourself and pay your bills or whatever, and meet people, see how other people work, see how other people live, how they do their thing. And I learned a lot just by watching, probably the most just by watching people, how they put in color, how they do, I learned from my mentor, but I also learned different things by watching different people. And I shared stuff that I knew and that I learned for myself with people too. A lot of people hadn't been doing, like a lot of stipple work, a lot of dot work type stuff, and I'd been doing a lot of it since that decision point. And I think I shared some stuff with people along the way that asked questions, and I felt like we had a good rapport. But sometimes you get a no, it's like, "Oh, what do you got there?" Like, don't worry about it. That's how it used to be. Some people still, it's like, it's important to check sometimes like what you're giving up, might be coveted information. So, anyhow, the travel, there's a lot of great stories with traveling, and I like swapping stories with clients, so that's always a fun kind of talking point, just stuff to share about experiences and whatnot. But I did travel abroad. I traveled a lot in Southeast Asia, Central America, all over the United States, working in different cities and different shops, meeting different people all the time. Super cool experiences. A little bit in Europe. Just got back from England, actually, my first trip to England, tattooing over there at a convention in York. It was a Nordic themed thing, and had a good time. And some of my funnier experiences on the road, definitely in Asia. Like Thailand is one of my favorite places to travel. Remember the first time I went there, I was like, dude, I'm home. Like this feels like the vibe to me. So going back there many times, I remember I was traveling, I pretty much took my work gear with me everywhere and was traveling from the north to the south of Thailand. I was on a train and it was a long ass train ride. It was like 20 hours or something. And I decided, like, I wonder if there's a shower on this thing, So I go to the bathroom, and sure enough, there's a shower. So I get my kit, my bathroom kit, go to grab myself a towel, whatever, out of my luggage, pack all my stuff in there so nobody ganks my stuff while I'm in the shower in the corner. And then I start to realize, like, I get undressed, I get lathered up, and I'm flying, like this train is flying through these little towns on the track. I'm lathered up, soapy, and this whole bathroom is like chrome. So it's just slippery as fuck as soon as the soap is everywhere. And I'm sliding around this train car, like trying to fucking wash myself, rinse myself, sliding around, like watching like the cities going by and whatnot. And I'm just like, this is so absurd. I will remember this forever. Like this weird little moment by myself where I'm on a train, butt naked, lathered up, sliding around this train car. And yeah, that was just ridiculous. Another kind of really cool experience that I had, I went to India several times. One of them was with a friend and a mentor who's kind of famous in the yoga, Ayurveda, like part of the world. Lived in India for a long time, so fun to travel with him, getting around. I traveled by myself quite a bit too, and I had picked his brain about, like, if I want to do like a personal retreat for myself, take some time and just like check out where, what do you suggest? And he said, well, I've got a property in South India you could go to, and it's a pretty rustic setting. There's a tribal man that will look after some of your stay there, but otherwise we'll leave you alone. And it's in the Polachi Hills in Tamil Nadu. So I'm like, great. So I kind of made arrangements. I stopped, and I was really sick when I got down there, like travel sick. And he knows people at a Ayurvedic clinic down there, and they actually took really good care of me, kind of got me, sorted out and let me rest, and was really helpful. And it was from there, actually, like, I tattooed some people. Some of my doctors there wanted like tattoos, and so we set up a little kind of a ritual space, and I put tattoos on probably like 4 or 5 people at the clinic there as like thank yous for looking after me. And they didn't really want much money either, so they were really gracious. And so I go down to, after I left there, I went further south into this mountainous area, and very much, it's like, it's trees around, but like also kind of dry. And the house is stilted, so I drive up this like rutted road, and I was warned earlier that there's elephants around, like wild elephants. And I'm like, okay, good to know. What should I do? What should I not do? Well, you light this kerosene lamp to make sure, because they'll see it and they'll know someone's there. But just before I got there, they had like torn down the shed where all the tools live, and when a male elephant is in his must, which is like a breeding rut, they're really dangerous. So they'll just like, they can go buck wild on you for no apparent reason, right? So I'm conscious of this. First night I'm there, like I get sorted out. Got my, like, literally sleeping on plank wood with a few sheets and a couple of blankets. It's plenty warm. And I'm thinking it's gonna be like this peaceful, like 2 weeks that I got to like chill out, be in this area, do some like helpful practices for myself. Ends up like the first night, bottle rockets start blasting across like toward my dwelling. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? You know, and I got like a high powered flashlight with me, and I'm like flashing it to let them know like, yo, I'm over here. I ain't trying to yell at them. They're not gonna, you know, I don't speak the language anyway, so they're not really gonna, that's not gonna matter. But like, apparently these farm owners, they have fences and stuff, but the elephants can charge right through them. So you get a few opportunities with elephants coming in, wrecking your, you know, ripping your crops up. All right, so the elephant story. Yeah, so I'm down there in this area where bottle rockets are flying by in this house I'm in, and there is it's unceasing. Like, it just keeps happening. It's like 20 minutes of barrage, and I'm just like, what the fuck? So apparently elephants will just go rip up crops and tear down trees, and, you know, if they're hungry, and they come at night because they know like they're harder to see then. And this is right adjacent to where I'm at. So for the first night, I didn't get much sleep, and I'm trying to figure out what the fuck's going on, why people are shooting bottle rockets at my house. And, you know, it's again, it's a stilted house, so like I'm pretty high up in the trees. And so I kind of go scout around a little bit the next day, and it's amazing standing in the footprints of an elephant, because they're huge, and it's a wild elephant. I started to see this pattern. They would come down to the river about 5 o'clock and take a bath. And it was like, there was a small pack and some younger ones too. And they'd trumpet a bit, and they'd take their bath, and then they'd like pack back up the mountain into some, like, I lost sight of them halfway up or so. And so again, the next night, more bottle rockets, more noise, more, you know, I'm like trying to get this like deep meditation thing going on, and there, this is just, you know, the opposite of what I thought it was going to be. So definitely a challenging scenario where I was, you know, my patience was tested in this environment, and you know, eventually got into a nice groove, but like, you know, it doesn't always work out like you plan. So, but it was powerful just to be in the vicinity of these wild pachyderms. Some of, like, they camouflage really well there because they look like rocks. They look like big boulders. And some of the big boulders that I would come up on were like, I thought was an elephant until I noticed that it was a rock. So you could just like walk right into the back end of one of these and be in a scary situation. So it was a great experience just to be out there. So another area I really enjoyed in India was up in Rajasthan, and it's a place called Pushkar, and you have to take a train from Delhi, and then you have to take a car over the hill. So you end up in this Ajmer, which is a Muslim town, and they got some cool stuff going on there. There's a Sufi tomb that people like to visit, but like you'd have to take a car across this mountain pass, and then kind of right at the top of the pass, you start seeing all these monkeys, lots of monkeys up there, and they're the black-faced long-tailed langur monkeys that are in the north, and it was, you know, I haven't spent a lot of time around primates, so that was cool to see. And then as soon as I was coming into town, this dude who rents like the motorcycles in town, local like bike guy, he sees me and he's like, tattooer? And I'm like, yeah, how'd you guess? I'm like, got my little, rolling case behind me with all the stickers and shit, and I'm tattooed, so obvious. But I stayed there for some months, and it was cool to kind of be able to be a part of, eventually, kind of like not be the one that's like the new guy standing out so much. Obviously, like I'm still standing out as a foreigner, can't really hide that, but eventually people get used to you. And I was tattooing a lot of travelers that were coming through there, like people from Israel, people from Russia, people from, there was a Scotsman I tattooed, there was a gal from Czech Republic. I mean, lots of different places coming through there, and they're traveling, seeking something, whatever, seeking themselves usually. That's a lot of times why we travel, is just we find more out about ourselves and in the reflection of all these other people and all these other customs and cultures. And I think Mark Twain was the one that said something about, it's travel is a cure for racism and bias and things like that. It's, it forces you into being receptive to new things, which I think is really valuable. So tattooing kind of in this area for a little while started to get kind of regular, and there's lots of stuff. There's like gypsies that hang out, they're outside the city and do various crafts and bring their stuff in, and so I would trade with them. And these are like really, really old lineages of people, we're talking like Silk Road, like, and not the website. So having interactions and experiences in this type of place was really just really valuable in terms of seeing how you can become kind of familiar and a part of a local area, even if you're not from there. Riding motorcycles in India was super fun. Being able to like get comfortable in that environment, because it is crazy to attempt to navigate traffic. And the use of the horn there is very different. It's like, this is a way of, we communicate with each other, like, here I come, don't make any erratic movements, in an echolocation way, tells you where the other person is. Over here, you honk at somebody and it's like offensive, fuck you. But there it's just like, no, please use your horn. We want to know like what's happening. So it's such a different environment in that way. But I was able to roll around on a bike, like rode a Royal Enfield all over Rajasthan, and it was a dry town. You couldn't get any beer or alcohol there, so I had to like roll over to the next just to have a beer and put on, it was desert kind of like environment too, so you dress differently and all of that stuff. But yeah, real rewarding to get to tattoo all those people, and that's where for me kind of the ritual side really started to come out with the way I was working with people in terms of intention, in terms of having a chat, having some tea with somebody, sitting down talking about like, oh, like what attracts you to this image, like what is it about, and sometimes we don't really even know, we're just attracted to it, and it reveals itself later why we were attracted to it, or why we wanted that image on us, or why we felt so resonant with it. And to me, that's, it doesn't necessarily matter that you have it worked out as a client. That obviously that's for you to discover, right? But you're going to have this image. So I started doing things a little more, a little more intentionally. My mentoring with clients, and with breath work, and with the way that you use your mind in the session, and that you're present and with your body in that moment, not trying to escape. Like, it's not really why we're doing this, right? We're not trying to escape something. We're actually like, here's a moment that it's powerful if we really remain present. So that was a defining like arc in my work and the way that I show up to it. So, yeah, magical moments. I was being in India multiple times. I'd become friends with a couple of guys that had already done that. They'd gone to India to tattoo a couple of times. My friend Freddie Corbin and Robert Ryan. They were definitely preceded me in that and inspired me to do that myself. And so when I was in Varanasi, which is arguably one of the oldest inhabited cities in the world, that's been continually inhabited, and it's a powerful place. There's a lot going on there. It's on the Ganges. The Ganges flows through Varanasi, or Benares, depending on what area you're from. Also called Kashi, the city of light. It's a Shiva-associated city. And this place, you have like ghats, which are steps that go down to the water everywhere. And that was a spot. So Freddie actually hooked me up with a friend of his locally there. It was kind of a fixer. He'll like help you figure stuff out. Helps a lot of tourists out. His name, what's up, Raju? And so he's there. He's kind of helping me out with some, logistics, but because I wanted to set up and offer my services to whoever, as an offering and as a form of seva or devoted service. So there's this aspect, kind of from the yogic philosophy of that, and I was able to set up behind this very small image of Lord Hanuman, which is the monkey god, also associated with Shiva. And so I'm under this tree behind, and I took a piece of cardboard and I like put my little shingle out and that I was tattooing. I was just gonna sit there all day and see what happened. And so that a line forming up, and there were some people who were just like further out, just watching and kind of looky-looing for most of the day. And it was hilarious because there was this guy who he came up on the platform a couple times to watch and like wanted to check it out. And he hung around all day, and I was there. I tattooed until my battery pack gave out, and then it was like 13 hours or something, and then I finished the last couple of tattoos by hand with just my headlamp on and no machine. And, it was great. It was a cool day. There was people and it was all local people, all Indians that were, some were religiously inclined, some were not. Some wanted crosses, some wanted Om symbols, some wanted, very like more esoteric Indian images, tigers, did a couple tigers, some unalom, stuff like that. I put 2 tattoos on a woman actually there. I think it was one of the guy's wives. But there was a sadhu. A sadhu is a renunciate who's like basically a monk, but they live out of doors usually and move around. They're technically dead to the world, dead to their family. Just like the vow is to renounce the world and focus on the pursuit of their own realization or God realization, whatever you want to call it. And there was and he wasn't a speaker. Sometimes they take vows of silence. Sometimes they take various vows of that are difficult to undertake. Like they're going to raise their arm up, keep it up there permanently, and never put it down. Can you imagine like what that? So their whole arm withers away, and they have like atrophy and no muscle tone, and their fingernails grow into their skin. It's crazy. Like just the mental fortitude of. Personally, I'm not into it, but like I can respect it. Tattooing is not that much different, maybe more incremental. But anyway, so this non-speaking sadhu comes up. He's in front of the line now, and he wants a Shiva Lingam tattooed on him. And he pointed at I had some flash that I drew up for this, and he pointed at that. And I was just drawing it on people and then tattooing. And he points at that, and then, so I drew it on him, and I kind of like made eye contact with him, said, hey, I'm gonna start now, and you good? And he's like, yeah, ready. And he was a small man and really thin. He had really, really like weathered skin, but put this tattoo right on his forearm, and he just lit up, man. Like when I finished it, he was just like, he stood up, and you could tell he wanted to do something. He grabbed my hands and he like danced around, and it was just really beautiful moment. Just like of joy for this dude, and I never saw him again, but it was really, really poignant. And then, of course, wouldn't be complete without the guy who's been lurking around, too scared to like do the thing, drinking all day. So he's drunk now, and he's like, I'm shutting down. I just finished the day, and I'm cleaning my stuff up, packing up my gear, and he's ready, right? It's like, I'm done, and he's ready. So he's trying to talk me into like doing one more tattoo, doing a tattoo for him. And I'm like, no, I'm done, finished, packing up, going home. And he's like, he gets petulant, he like stomps around, he's trying to like tantrum it out, like I'm gonna change my mind. And then he gives up on that, and he starts crying, and he's like doing like all this dramatic like histrionics, and he's like, goes over, and then he passes out on the steps, and that was like the end of my day. And I'm just like, of course, like it wouldn't be complete without the drunk guy. So it's so common with shops, especially walk-in shops, to like have some drunk person come in and try to like suck up your time or get something for cheap or whatever. And it's no different, right? So like same but different anywhere you go. And so for me, that was humorous and just drew everything together. So tattooing in India, like I had more of an understanding for people through the act of tattooing them and doing what they were asking for. Definitely felt more accepted in terms of like acknowledgement and valuation. And because I also like it wasn't about it's like my normal price for something is not something they're going to be able to afford. So I just took that off the table, and it was more about just the giving back in exchange for like something that obviously like I've appreciated. Like I appreciate just being there, and this is an opportunity to connect and to be almost community with people that you wouldn't normally. You're not even going to have a conversation really, because the language is different. Just like tattooing in Thailand or something, like working on somebody doing a cover-up that just got out of prison, just got his life saved by someone else copping to the crime, like drug crime or something. I ended up doing a huge cover-up because this dude got crazy tattoos when he was in Thai prison, and wanted me to cover it all up. So, it's like these relationships like that really start to affect deeper level than like the commercial exchange, deeper level of interaction and acceptance within the cultures, because I don't know, I think we all see each other as more human that way. And a lot of the extraneous differences or the bias that we have goes away. So this idea of magical moments, as far as tattooing and how is it magical? Well, I talk about the change that we create in the flesh immediately changes, of course, like the person's image, the self-image, and their relationship with that. A lot of psychology potential in there, but I think it goes beyond psychology into the philosophical, into the potential spiritual realms, which I've been really passionate at pursuing myself, just because of my own experience, having this, full suit of transformation, sticking with it, completing it over a long period of time. Something that most people don't do. Also something that it comes up now, it's like people are they're putting themselves under full anesthesia and getting have you seen this? Like, so for me, that's a hard no, because you're taking away this really potent experience of being present with yourself, going through a difficult process. It forces you, like, there's very little things that are hard for us in this life anymore. We have all these material comforts, and doing hard things is really, it changes us and it builds character and it takes us beyond the flesh. So like immediately this is a mind over matter situation. We have to like sit still while somebody like hurts us a little bit and also does something beautiful to our skin. It's like, it's a win-win-win. But if you're doing it under anesthetic, you're not getting so much of that experience. You're bypassing it. So in a way, it's a poor cheat code for the experience itself and for having a tattoo. So I definitely don't respect that choice. So I was getting back around to talking about what makes this a magical experience in terms of tattooing and being tattooed. So to illustrate that, one thing that comes up for me is the work I did for Madame Chinchilla, who's a really interesting gal, and she and her husband, Mr. G, have a shop called Triangle Tattoo down in Fort Bragg, California. And I guested there a bunch of times. I slept in the shop. They were an old hippie couple. I think their story is that they met in a hot tub on acid in Seattle in the 80s. And they just decided together at that moment that they were going to be tattooers. She was like a textile designer and he was doing something else. But they just they met and they stayed together from then on, and they became tattooers, and they have a little museum in their shop, which is super cool. They've been toured all over the world, and she's written a bunch of books. She's Captain Don Leslie's biographer, who was a carny, sword swallower. He did a little tattooing too. Anyway, so I'm guesting with them. I'd come back around after one of my travels abroad, and she asked me for one of my magical mandala tattoos, and I'm because of my spiritual background and my efforts in that department, there's maybe a little more gravitas there than just a nice thought or a wish. So she asked me, and she actually provided the ink that she wanted me to use. She said, I want this in color. I'm like, oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but okay, we'll do it how you want. She picked this spot on her leg down here for me to put the tattoo. And so I did my thing with her, brought in some mystical mantras and some intention and energy with this, and did the tattoo, and she thanked me, and I left not long after. And then about a year-ish later, I see on Facebook or something, she went to the doctor and had some cancer issue, and under the tattoo, this tumor had popped up, and she had gotten the tumor taken out and she was okay. So I was like, that's right I called her and I was like, that's right on the tattoo that I put on, yeah? And she's like, yeah. It's like, they took it right out of there. And I was like, that's wild. Because you asked me for like a healing, magical tattoo, right? And that's what I did. And, you know, I didn't think it was going to go that direction, but fucking lo and behold, you know? So I'm like, well, I'm glad you're okay. And, you know, you're feeling good, good. And they're still around. I don't think they're tattooing much anymore, but they still run the shop, like kind of live behind it. And so that was like one of those moments where I had to definitely like scratch my head and be like, huh, that's, that is pretty magical. And happy that it worked out that way. So that kind of took me further into my like philosophy of intention and bringing things, getting people to make things more clear. So I even went to during COVID, I developed further this into like a program. So the whole philosophy that I continued to develop and work with, called, for the time being at least, it's called Tattoo Vinyasa. And Vinyasa means a flow with a beginning and a middle and an end, and each segment positions you well for the next segment. So it's a yoga term for a lot of people, and a lot of people consider that like just as like a physical thing, like, oh, we're gonna do vinyasa or practice today, whatever. But it actually is Sanskrit, so it has multiple layers of meaning. And nyasa is actually a practice. It's a tantric practice of like placing different deities on the body in terms of like energy and like protection and empowerment and things like this. So the V part of the V prefix before nyasa means something special. So multiple layers of meaning in those two words. Or tattoo, of course, is obvious, or in one word. So that's really what I started to work with in terms of like, especially during the COVID period where we were all shut in a bit and needed to turn our focus somewhere. So I continued to develop that. And again, as I was saying, trying to develop some things for the veterans community, because I think they need it. I think they get the shaft a lot, and I want to support, you know, if I can, through that. Tattooing might be the most permanent thing that we can do to ourselves in an impermanent world. It's really powerful, and for that reason, I continue to do it and continue to enjoy it. So I just want to say, you know, give my thanks to my mentor, Colin Delgado, for teaching me the craft and also tattooing me for so many years, being a real true brother for 25 plus, almost 30 years now. You know, a lot of other people that gave me work, gave me a guest spot all across the country. Too many to name probably, but you know, the first shop I worked in at Anchor Tattoo, Curtis James was at the helm at that time, and just, you know, big ups to him. Appreciate giving me a shot right out of my apprenticeship, basically, and just being a stand-up guy. August also for showing me, you know, that appreciation and putting me in touch with his family in Bali and being able to travel there. You know, anybody that's given me a job or a guest spot or considered, and then the ultimate thank you really goes to my clients. People that have kept me busy, kept me creative, giving to the best of my ability, are my clients. So yeah, just big appreciation for people that get tattooed, that share my work or share my information. It's super valuable and has kept me busy for the last nearly 20 years. So yeah, it's about covers it.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you.